Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of SacTown Movie Buffs. Once again, I'm Kier, and this is Jason. And today we are continuing our top 10 films of each year series. This will be part 2 of our top 10 films of 2002. So we'll be doing number 5 through number 1, plus some honorable mentions. But you'll want to hang out to the end because we're also going to be doing our challenge films for 2003. And with that said, without further ado, I say we just get right into it, man. So let's get into it. Let's start with your what?
Number 5?
Yeah, you thought you were going to say something. Yeah, let's start with your number 5. Let's start with your number 5 film of 2002.
All right, my number 5 for 2002 is About a Boy. So, yeah. So this is a, I don't know why I did that thing at the beginning.
Yeah, anyway, don't ever do that again.
Yeah, this is a, About a Boy is a really excellent comedy drama, I guess you could say. It stars Hugh Grant as basically it's kind of a coming of age, even though he's middle-aged, which is an interesting way of saying it, because he basically plays somebody who's never had to work at anything. He's gotten by his whole life based on the royalty checks that come in from his, I believe it's his father's Christmas song that he wrote. So the royalty checks come in nonstop. So he's never really had to put in any effort for anything. But geez, it's been a while since I watched it. I don't remember what happens that calls that into question. But for whatever reason, he's now having to start to fend for himself because he's never had to work, never had to do anything but just kick back and collect the royalty checks. So it's kind of his story of learning how to function as an adult, even though he's already middle-aged. He's, it's been so long since I watched this. I don't remember how the little boy comes into his life. The boy that it's about, I don't remember how he comes into the picture. I've seen this movie. I've seen this movie so many times. I love it, but I don't remember how he comes into his life. They're neighbors or something. I don't remember. But and the kid's mom is Toni Collette. It's a great movie. It is. It's made by the same director who directed American Pie, which I thought was interesting because it showed that I love American Pie and everything, but About a Boy is a much more moving, soulful movie than that was. So it's got a great soundtrack by Badly Drawn Boy. It's very funny. It's moving. It's a good Christmas movie, sort of. Meaning it's only Christmas for a short period, but I count any movie that has any scene involving Christmas as a Christmas movie.
Yeah, we know.
So yeah, but I love About a Boy. I highly recommend it. It's very funny, very moving. It's the movie that made me understand. Oh yeah, I get why people like Hugh Grant, basically. So that's my number 5.
Cool. Yeah, I haven't seen it in many, many years, man. And not to fault you. That's going to happen on some of these shows if you're watching, if we seem like we're kind of stumbling to describe the film because, we're doing these top 10 films and we're also doing the honorable mentions. And many of these films, we're not rewatching all of these films before we do these shows. So, and obviously going back, 18, 20 years, whatever it is, we're not going to remember every single element or detail about some of them. As we probably get closer into the more current years, we'll probably have a little bit more memory or recollection on them. So I stumble over them too sometimes too. So I completely understand. So that's not a fault.
I probably could have done a little better preparation, but I thought I've seen all these movies 100 times.
Yeah, and that's what I think too. I'm like, I'll definitely remember what this is about. And then I go to describe it and I'm like, I have no clue what I'm talking about right now.
Good.
Yeah. I haven't seen it in many years. I do remember overall liking it. It didn't make my top 10 or honorable mentions or anything, but I don't remember having any fault with it or anything like that. So I'll just say it's a good film. Check it out. It's a good choice. I just can't remember a whole heck of a lot about it, unfortunately. So, because I probably haven't seen it since 2002, to be honest with you. So,
man.
My number 5, and clearly I watch this film all the time because it's still in the shrink wrap, is going to be the Bourne Identity. So most people are familiar with the Bourne series. Basically stars Matt Damon as like this Black Ops hitman. I don't know what term you would describe somebody as. They work for like the government, but they're like trained killers basically. They go in and like diffuse a situation. Mercenary, maybe. Yeah, I guess like a mercenary. He in this case though, he actually has amnesia. And can't remember anything. He's in an accident, has amnesia, wakes up like on a fishing boat, can't remember anything, but starts noticing different details about himself that leads him to believe that he was, he knows certain things about himself. He has like some sort of like chip that was like implanted in his body that's dug out of him. That's like a tracking thing for him. And then he notices whenever he gets into a conflict that he's very handsy with fighting and killing and that sort of stuff. And so this film was the first of that series. So it was basically him and I forget who the girl was in that film. Can't remember her name.
It's Franca Potente from Run a Little Run.
Yeah, so same girl in there. They kind of pair up together. They're both kind of on the run. She's on the run for a different reason than he is, but basically he's on the run because the government or CIA or whoever it is that he works for, they're looking for him. They're potentially trying to exterminate him because they think that he's gone rogue. But in actuality, he may have gone rogue, but he can't remember why. So, and that's basically kind of the gist of the film. So it's just a really fun action film. It's got some great fight scenes, great action sequences. Definitely right up my alley. Can't say if it was my favorite one or not, but definitely I'd have to revisit all of them to say which one was my favorite. But I definitely loved this one when it came out. It was just so much fun. I thought it was really cool. A guy with kind of like amnesia and has all these particular skills. The only other film that I know that's similar to like that is The Long Kiss Goodnight, which is kind of similar, like the female version of that, basically, where someone has amnesia and has all these fighting skills and that kind of stuff. So always enjoy that one. So number 5 for me is the Bourne Identity.
Cool. Yeah, I like the Bourne Identity. It's not my favorite series. I always, as far as like their long running action series go. I would reach for a Mission Impossible or a John Wick before I'd reach for a Bourne movie, but I like it. I tend to prefer the second and third ones because I like the first one's very, very clean and smooth, and I like the roughness and the rawness of the second and third ones. But it's a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about the Mission. I like all of them. I like all the series. I hate to say that which ones I like more. I probably like the John Wick ones more than this one. But there's only been 3 John Wick films, so well, I guess there's really only 3 that starred Matt Damon, but it's still kind of the same kind of thing. So, whereas there's been like 6 Mission Impossibles or something. So,
yeah, and they're awesome.
Most of them are pretty good. I think 2 was the weakest one, but yeah.
Well, yeah. It's still awesome, though.
And moving on to number 4.
Number 4 for me is Adaptation. So this is a very I'm trying to get like not the reflection there, but Adaptation is a Spike Jonze movie. He's the guy who directed also Being John Malkovich and Her. Which was I love both of those movies. This is based on a Charlie Kaufman screenplay. He also wrote Being John Malkovich. So Charlie Kaufman, I like him a lot. He has a very unique mind. Oh, he also wrote Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So his movies are very they kind of different layers of perception and like crazy mental stuff going on. So I like that kind of weird stuff. Adaptation is a movie about Nicolas Cage plays twins. One of them is a screenwriter and is very insecure, and the other twin brother is like the complete opposite of him, very confident and like a ladies' man and everything. And over the course of the movie, it's hard to explain really, but he's working on an adaptation of a book that is thought to be unadaptable, and eventually the movie becomes kind of a screenplay itself. It's hard to explain, but it's a very good movie. Nicolas Cage is really great in it. Meryl Streep is really great in it. Chris Cooper is really great in it. It's a very unpredictable, very keeps you on the edge of your toes kind of movie. I think it's pretty brilliant, and again, I'm messing up the description of it. But adaptation, excellent movie, number 4 for 2002 for me.
Cool. Yeah, I can't remember anything about that film. So, it's like one of those ones where I was like, did I even see that film? I don't remember one thing about it. So I do remember the twin brother element to it, but that's about all I remember about that film. So thanks for choosing a bunch of films that neither one of us has seen and can't remember that well, or seen a long time and can't remember that well.
Oh, I've seen them both a lot. It's just been a while.
Yeah. I couldn't tell you anything about it, to be honest with you. I didn't, I don't remember even if I liked it or not. Probably not, since I haven't revisited it. So at least not enough to see it again. So
take my word for it. It's a masterpiece.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I didn't think it was a masterpiece when I saw it. So, because otherwise it would be in this list, which it's not. So, but yeah, no, great choice. I don't remember a whole lot about it, so I can't even remember what grade I gave that film. Other than it just kind of went over my head. So, all right. So, moving on to my number 4, which I have a little bit more of a memory of, and you probably do too. My number 4 is going to be Blade 2. So yeah, I always have a weird thing about the Blade series. I thought the first one, I when I first saw it, I initially liked the first one. When I watch it now, it's okay. I didn't like the third one, or but the second one, I love the second one. The second Blade is awesome. If you don't know the Blade series, it stars Wesley Snipes, and he is basically his mom was attacked when he was, I guess, pregnant in the womb, kind of thing. I believe. I don't remember the first story, but something like that. In any event, so he is kind of born like by a vampire. Sorry. So he is born like part vampire, part human still. So as they say, he has all of their strengths of a vampire, but like none of their weaknesses, kind of thing. So he can like walk, in the daylight, sun doesn't bother him, that kind of stuff. He still has to like drink blood, but he like, injects blood or something like that. So he's not like eating and feeding on humans or anything like that. And he's kind of taken upon himself to be kind of like a vampire hunter, basically. And that's kind of what the first film was. The second film is more of, so there's a bunch of vampires, obviously, and he's always been at war with vampires. But then all of a sudden there's a new breed of vampires that come along that actually are killing and eating other vampires, basically, in this film. And so he basically has to team up with his enemies, which are the regular vampires, in order to try to fight off these super strong, super fast, super deadly new strain of vampires that are feasting on vampires, basically. And so it's just a really cool vampire horror / action film. It's just so much fun. I just love it from beginning to end. It's just a really, really fun film. Like I said, definitely one of my probably top 5 or 6 vampire films, in my opinion, and definitely a great film. That's my number 4. It's Blade 2.
Yeah, I love Blade 2. It's in my runner-ups, but I think it's easily the best Blade movie.
Yeah,
and it's actually one of I think it's one of Guillermo del Toro's best movies. It kind of gets overshadowed in the stuff that he made later on that was kind of a bigger deal, like Pan's Labyrinth and stuff like that. But I think it's a great genre horror action movie, and it's very bloody, very intense. It reminds me of Predator a lot. That it's just a really bloody action horror movie that doesn't hold back, and it's super exciting. So yeah, love it. Yeah,
cool.
Yeah,
right along to number 3.
Number 3, another one you're gonna love. Punch Drunk Love is my number 3 for 2002. So I'm a big fan of Paul Thomas Anderson. He's one of my favorite filmmakers. Boogie Nights, Magnolia, Hard 8, The Master. He's made a lot of really great movies, in my opinion. And this was, as far as I remember, this was the first time that Adam Sandler really kind of dug in to play like a pseudo-dramatic role. So he plays Barry in this movie, who's kind of like kind of an Adam Sandler type, actually, kind of like the immature, insecure, kind of loser who is prone to like acts of rage out of nowhere. So that's kind of like the Adam Sandler template anyway, but he was kind of using the Adam Sandler persona in like a completely different kind of movie. So I think it's a really interesting movie. It's very funny. It's really interestingly made. If you know anything about Paul Thomas Anderson, you know he does really a lot of interesting things with cinematography and sound and music. So it's kind of his attempt to make a romantic comedy in a weird way. Because I remember like reading after Boogie Nights and Magnolia that he was getting ready to make a romantic comedy with Adam Sandler. And, you know, that sounded like a really strange idea at the time because Adam Sandler was mainly known for like Happy Gilmore and The Wedding Singer and Saturday Night Live and goofy stuff like that. But I always love it when like someone who's known for being funny reveals themselves to actually be like a really good actor. And I kind of knew that Adam Sandler could pull it off, and this didn't surprise me. I thought he really did a great job here, and I think it's a really interesting movie that's kind of gotten lost over time with Paul Thomas Anderson's more well-known movies and Adam Sandler's more well-known movies, but I think it's a really great movie. That's my number 3, 2002.
Cool. Yeah, another one I don't really recall all that well because I didn't really see it again. So yeah, great list so far. But yeah, I don't remember liking this one as much, and I'm not a big Paul Thomas Anderson fan in general. I didn't really care for most of his films, to be honest with you. So he's I just don't like his style too much, I guess. Not David Lynch. Don't like his style, but I've never really seen one of his films that I loved, I guess, if you will. So it's just some people like his style. You obviously do. I just don't care for it personally. So it's kind of an acquired taste, I guess, and I've never acquired that taste for it. So but,
yeah, it's called good, and I know you don't like good movies most of the time. So
I don't think that's it at all. But okay,
pretty sure.
So yeah, I can't really comment too much on what I didn't like about it, other than I know that I didn't love it. So clearly not making my top 10 or my honorable mentions, unfortunately. My number 3, we've already kind of basically covered on the previous show, so I won't have to spend a whole lot of time on that. But the number 3 for me is actually going to be The Ring. So yeah, as I already kind of mentioned in the previous show, if you haven't seen that, definitely check that out. It was in Jason's top 10. I think it was like your number 8 or something like that. I don't remember exactly.
Like that, yeah, 7 or 8. Yeah.
7 or 8. It's like I said, it's one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and horror is kind of more his genre, but I do like a lot of horror movies as well. Blade 2 is kind of sort of horror, but a little action as well. But The Ring is one of those movies that just really freak me out. I definitely enjoy it. It's one of those ones that it's just really just creepy and scary, and and the funny part about it is it's not that graphic. You know what I mean? It's a lot of imagery that's scary, but you don't see a lot of the physical like killing on screen. I guess is always like the aftermath of it kind of thing. So it is kind of interesting in that regard too. But yeah, just one that I've always loved. I've always enjoyed The Ring. It still holds up very well for me. I haven't seen it in a few years, but every time I watch it, it's still scary. There's still parts that I still kind of like. I still get a little bit of that anxiety a little bit, in some of those first scenes, you know what I mean? Where she's like coming through the TV and that kind of stuff. You get a little bit of, oh my God, here it comes. You know what I mean? So it still does that for me. You know what I mean? So it's like one of those films that still kind of stands the test of time for me that I can still put on today and still get a little heebie-jeebies from it. You know what I mean? So I still will really, really enjoy it. So just a really fun film. Number 3 for me is The Ring.
Yeah, like you said, we already talked about that one, and I love The Ring. I think it's a fantastic movie. And like you mentioned, like it is really still scary. And in particular, the opening scene is really scary. Yeah, I agree. I really like that. I know Scream wasn't the first movie to do that by any means, but Scream kind of not only brought horror movies back into fashion, but brought in back into fashion the idea that you got to get people's attention right off the bat.
Right.
And like Scream has a legendary opening scene, And you kind of saw like from most of the popular horror movies that came out after that, they kind of followed that. You got to get them right off the bat with a really scary, almost like standalone,
Right.
scene that really gets people's attention. And that definitely was one of those. It's kind of almost like a little
sucked in immediately. Immediately, you're like, "Oh man, what is happening here?"
It's almost like a little standalone short film. Scream and
sure.
this one.
I agree.
That starts with really terrifying. So great movie. Yeah.
Cool. Number two. Yeah, number
two. Number two for me. It's another one that I haven't seen in a long time, so I'm probably not going to explain it that well because it's pretty heavy. You don't really feel like watching it that often. But my number two is City of God. So this is a great movie that I have the Blu-ray that I got not too long ago, so I should probably revisit it for the first time in like 15 years. But it's a super excellent movie. It is set in the slums around Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. It's kind of a coming-of-age story. The main character is like a teenager who doesn't belong to any of the gangs. It's an area dominated by street gangs. He just kind of wants to be a photographer. So it's his coming-of-age story, kind of growing up in these slums and kind of knowing people who are in all the gangs and everything, and just kind of being an outside observer. And it's a really well-made movie. It's very intense. It's very dramatic. It's very long, but not, it shows that it doesn't have to be, a long movie can keep your interest, and a movie that's barely 90 minutes can feel like an eternity. But it's a really great epic film that I really should watch again because it's probably been about 15 years. But
you should.
Great movie. Yeah, great movie. That's my number two for 2002.
Awesome. Great choice. Yeah, I love City of God. I actually just watched it the other night. It is just a really, really good film. It's
still awesome.
Huh?
Is it still awesome?
It is still awesome. Yeah, I mean, okay. It's foreign language. Obviously, it's set in Brazil, but it is just a really, really good film. I mean, it has a little bit of everything. You know what I mean? It's got good drama. It's funny. It's got some good action, obviously, and just a really overall just really great story. So yeah, great choice, man. Awesome.
Cool. Yeah. Cool.
Moving on to my number two. My number two, and one that I've always liked, I'm an action guy, so I love action films. And this one is, I'm also a mobster guy, and I love mobster films. So this one's kind of a little bit of a blend of both, which is going to be Road to Perdition. So I've always enjoyed Road to Perdition with Tom Hanks. Great story. Paul Newman's in it. Jude Law's in there as a bad guy as well. Basic story is Tom Hanks is a bad guy. Tom Hanks is a mobster guy. Sorry, is like a mobster. I shouldn't say he's a bad guy, but he technically is. But he's not a bad guy. He's a mobster guy. He's a family man. Also, he's a mobster guy, and he works for Paul Newman's character, whose son is also in this film, Daniel Craig, as well. Who plays a really good, weasel kind of character, and he's on his way to do like a job. With Daniel Craig, and when they're leaving, he doesn't know, but Tom Hanks' son ends up like kind of stashes away in the car, and kind of is witness to a murder scene. And for some reason, Daniel Craig takes it upon himself to want to basically hurt Tom Hanks' family. And so it kind of goes from there, and I hate to get too much into it because it's kind of like one of those, the beginning's kind of hard to explain without giving away too much. But it turns into like this really good like cat and mouse chase film where basically Tom Hanks and the boy are kind of on the run, but they're also hunting, or Tom Hanks anyways is hunting to find Daniel Craig's character because he wants to kill him for him coming after him and his family. So it's got a lot of action. It's a great mobster film. It's a good story. It's kind of a good road movie film as well because they're on the road. They're kind of traveling through the country. Just one that I've always loved. I've always enjoyed Road to Perdition. And, like I said, I think it's Tom Hanks. It's one of the rare films where he's really kind of a really good action role for him. He hasn't really done a whole lot of action movies, I could say. So it's a really rare to see him as like kind of like, you know, killing people and shooting people and that kind of stuff, because he's always been kind of more of a comedy or you know, dramas and that kind of stuff. So I thought it was kind of a different character for him, and I thought he did it well. I mean, obviously he's been in like, you know, war movies and stuff like that, but this was, you know, the first one where he was kind of a bad guy. Not totally bad guy, but you know, and then he's obviously being chased by like Jude Law, who's just like a contract killer, who's also really creepy in there as well. So yeah, just really, really fun film. Always loved Road to Perdition, and that is my number 2 film of 2002.
Cool. Yeah, Road to Perdition is really good. It's in my runner-ups. It's a really good movie. I think it's kind of interesting. It's I haven't seen it in a while, but I saw it several times back then. I remember.
I haven't seen it in a few years, but yeah. It's kind of like, I remember like it got good reviews, but it didn't get great reviews. It just kind of got pretty good reviews, and it's just kind of disappeared. You know, like nobody ever talks about it. I forget it exists, you know, because nobody ever talks about that. Like, it's just kind of And in fairness, I mean, when you've made like Saving Private Ryan and all these other just great films that he's made and he's won Oscars for, I mean, some of his films are going to get lost in the shuffle. And the guy's been acting for, you know, 30-something years, you know what I mean? And he's made just so many, I mean, I go through my library of films, and, you know, I probably own 20 Tom Hanks films, you know what I mean? So, you know, he's just like one of those guys that just kind of has always made so many good movies that, you know, unfortunately this one probably gets lost in the shuffle. So,
yeah, it does. And excuse me, sorry. You know, it just like it starts. Sorry, yeah, it's just you talk and I start to yawn. So, no, it stars Tom Hanks. Yeah, it stars Tom Hanks. It's directed by Sam Mendes, who made American Beauty. So I'm sure, you know, Tom Hanks is kind of playing against type. So I'm sure they thought it was going to be getting, you know, Oscar nominations up the wazoo, but I don't think it got any. Maybe, you know, sound design or something like that. So it's unfortunate because it's a really good movie, and it just kind of, it didn't get Oscar nominations, so it just kind of disappeared, I guess.
It did get 2 thumbs up from Roger Ebert and Richard Roeper, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But back then, pretty much everything got 2 thumbs up from Ebert and Roeper. It seemed like it. Yeah. But yeah, it's a really good movie. Yeah.
Cool. Your number 1 film of 2002.
My number 1, it's pretty easy because this is one of my favorite movies, and that is Far From Heaven. So this is a movie by Todd Haynes, who's one of my favorite filmmakers. He hasn't done everything that I loved, but he did this, and I'm blanking on it. A movie called Safe that I really like. He's a really interesting filmmaker. This is a movie that makes a conscious attempt to kind of evoke the feelings of a 50s melodrama by Douglas Sirk. It kind of follows the template of this movie called All That Heaven Allows, which I've still never seen. That sounds pretty bad, but it's basically an attempt to make a movie in the style of a 50s melodrama with those kind of lush colors and the type of dialogue and the type of music that you'd find in a 50s melodrama, except that it utilizes subject matter that would never make it through in the 50s, which I think is a really interesting approach. So it's got a married woman played by Julianne Moore who is kind of having an interracial relationship with her gardener, which would have never happened in a 50s movie. Her husband, meanwhile, Dennis Quaid, is in the closet, basically. So he's gay, and it goes into that. And again, something that would never make it through in a 50s melodrama. So I thought it was really kind of cool to make a movie that seems like it was really made in the 1950s, but because it was so controversial, no one ever released it. That's the feeling of this movie, is like you found this movie that no one would release 50 years ago, but it's now seeing the light of day. It's that convincing. It really is that convincing in the terms of the way it's made. Obviously, you recognize the people in it, so it doesn't quite carry the illusion over. But it's a really, really fascinating movie. It's very emotionally powerful. The acting is really great. Julianne Moore is I don't think she's ever been better. Dennis Haysbert is really great in it. Dennis Quaid's really great in it. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Again, it's a Christmas movie, sort of, so I consider it a Christmas movie. But it's easily, without a doubt, my number one movie of 2002, and that is the poster's better than the DVD cover, but Far From Heaven. Number one.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen it, so yeah. But I don't think that I have. So yeah, great, man, great choice for number one. Nobody's heard of it, nobody's seen it, but awesome.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. A+.
Yeah, I can't comment to it too much because I've never even heard of it. Cool. Maybe one I'll check out someday. All right. Well, yeah, great.
Well, it is the best movie of 2002, scientifically proven. So you probably should.
Yeah, that nobody's seen. Well, I mean, hey, we all have our choices, and that's yours. Cool. I like the bottom half of your top 10 a lot better than your top half, that's for sure. So, but cool. So, like I said, I haven't seen it, so I can't really comment on it too much. But I'm sure it's a fine film.
Oh, it is.
I doubt I'm going to agree that it's the number one film of the year, but I'm sure it's a fine film.
Yeah, because it is.
Cool. Well, my number one we've actually already covered, and usually I own the number one films of the year, and I do own this one, but I think I lent it to somebody and I never got it back. So, which is always the case, anytime, this was a film, usually the films that you lend to someone, because it's a film that a lot of people haven't seen before, but it's a film that I feel like everybody should watch. So, you lend it to somebody and then, you don't get it back for years.
Yeah.
So, my number one film, and like I said, we've already covered it, is actually going to be City of God.
Yeah, I knew it.
Yeah, I just love this film. Like I said, I watched it again the other night with my fiance because she had never seen it before, it is just, I mean, it's an epic film in that regard, but it kind of takes you through the story. It's mostly based on it's based on a true story, but it's mostly based on this kid that grew up in like the slums and the ghetto of City of God, in Rio in Brazil. And it just takes you through a story about him growing up in the slums and about all the people and the murders and the drug use, and but it's got a lot of humor to it as well. I mean, there's a lot of funny scenes that happen in there, but it also has a lot of violence and a lot of action. A lot of people do die in this film for sure. A lot of people that he knows, family members, friends, that kind of stuff. And it kind of just takes you through him growing up from being a kid in the slums to being like a teenager, and then ultimately to being, I guess, either like a late teen or adult, because he does have like a job, towards the end of the film or whatever. But it just kind of takes you through like, I don't know, maybe like 2 decades of his life and his story growing up in the slums and that kind of stuff. And, there's a lot of like crime. There's a lot of like, people selling drugs and killing each other. There's the main bad guy. He's kind of like one of those like trigger happy guys that just kills people just for sport kind of thing. So, and they've kind of grew up together, and he's always kind of had like he's got real reasons to not like this guy and not to want to be around this guy, but he's always ended up like running into this guy everywhere. And so it's always an interesting interaction between him and this like really drug lord, killer that lives in his neighborhood. And it's just a really, really interesting story. And like I said, it has a lot of humor. It's hands down my favorite film of 2002. I think it's just an amazing, amazing film. And it's probably my favorite foreign language film as well. I think it's definitely my favorite foreign language film. Definitely one that I urge everybody to check out. But that is my number one film of 2002, City of God.
Excellent choice.
I know.
Yeah.
I just said it.
Yeah. It's the number 2, but it's excellent choice.
Yeah. Be number 1 with a bullet is what it should be. You'll watch it again and you'll be like, you know what? I've seen the error of my ways. It is number 1.
Sure. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm going to run through my honorable mentions real quick because mine don't take as long, and because I only use 5. I don't know how many he brought in this time. He didn't tell me. So,
not too bad. 18, I think.
All right. So number 15 for me, we covered on the last show, is Rules of Attraction. Another really, really good one. 14 for me is 8 Mile, Eminem story. If you haven't seen that one, that's always a really, really good one. 13 we also covered on the previous show, which was Undercover Brother. So really enjoy that one. Number 12 is Bowling for Columbine. Great documentary film by Michael Moore regarding the Columbine shootings and guns in America and that kind of stuff. Really, really good one. If you get a chance, check that one out. I highly urge you to check that one out. And number 11 is Better Luck Tomorrow. Like a much better version of Stella and the Spades. If you've watched some of our previous shows, we talked about that before. Better Luck Tomorrow is basically about like these really, really smart like Asian kids that have kind of like their own little like clique or whatever. And, they steal test answers and that kind of stuff. And then as they, get growing popularity, they start getting guns and dealing drugs and that kind of stuff. But they're these really educated like Asian kids that are doing this kind of like gang type stuff in a way. Really, really great film. Really, really fun. But those are my honorable mentions, and I'll kick it over to you.
All right, real quick. I tried to limit my honorable mentions because there were way more than this, but these are the top of the crop. And I just put them in alphabetical order because I didn't have time to rank them. But my runner-ups for 2002 are Antoine Fisher. So this is Denzel Washington's directorial debut. I think he's an underrated director. Every movie he's made as a director, I've really enjoyed, but this is still his best, I think. Better Luck Tomorrow that you just talked about. Right. Really cool movie about like straight A students who nobody looks twice at because they assume they're not getting into the kind of things they're getting into. Blade 2, already talked about this one. Really excellent action horror film. Dahmer. So I think this is a really good movie, and it's
Dahmer. Oh,
yeah. So this is Jeremy Renner. It doesn't matter how many times he played a guy, he's always Jeffrey Dahmer in my mind. And I know that sounds bad, but he's phenomenal in this movie. Before anybody knew who he was, it reminds me a lot of the really great serial killer films like Seven, or not really Seven because it's not a thriller. It's more Silence of the Lambs. It's very, very unsettling. And he's excellent. Yeah, he's excellent in it. Jackass. I'm a Jackass fan. I've liked all three of the movies, but there's something special about that first one.
Yeah, I agree.
May. So this is a really cool, really unconventional horror film. One of my favorites. Minority Report. One of, I think, Steven Spielberg's best films. One of his more dark films. Excellent science fiction action film. Don't do that. I held back when I wanted to do that when he went over 8 Mile.
Everybody likes 8 Mile.
It's okay. It's Purple Rain.
The song won an Oscar.
Yeah, the song is okay. But I don't like Eminem. We know that. He's talented, but I don't like him.
You're gonna get a lot of hate mail in the comments, man.
Yeah, I don't care. He's made a couple of great albums, but as a person, he bugs me. The Mothman Prophecies, a really underrated horror film that nobody saw, nobody's heard of, but nobody likes. Yeah, it's super creepy. It's super creepy. Resident Evil. This is actually my set of the entire series. I like almost the entire series. I remember really hating the second one, but I intend to watch it again sometime soon now that I got this set recently. Maybe I'll like the second one now too. But anyway, the first one came out in 2002. Super fun zombie movie based on a super fun zombie game. Road to Perdition, already talked about. Really good movie. Roger Dodger. I don't know if you've seen this one, but I think you would really like it.
You showed it to me. I barely remember it, but I do remember it. Isn't it set like in New York or something like that? Or
yeah, and it's Jesse Eisenberg going to visit his uncle, Campbell Scott, who kind of shows him the ropes of being like, a ladies' man or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, it's really good. Salton Sea, we talked about last time. Really cool movie, really unconventional movie. Signs, we talked about last time. Really good movie. Solaris. This is I'm out of step with most people when I think this is actually a little better than the original, which is like a 3-hour Russian masterpiece. It's a great movie, but I really like this 90-minute compact Steven Soderbergh version. It's really underrated, cool science fiction movie. 28 Days Later. I think we talked about that last time, right? Didn't we?
Yeah, I like that cover.
Yeah, it's kind of weird artwork. I like it.
Yeah.
And then lastly, which would actually be on the top end of my runner-ups, is Whale Rider. I love this movie. Really great coming-of-age story set in New Zealand among the Maori people. So love that movie. So that's it. I could have done like at least 10 more, but I tried to limit myself.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. A few of those that weren't already my top 10 would have made, like, if I did 25 runner-ups, they would have probably been in there. So, but great runner-ups, most of them, anyways.
Most of yours too.
Thank you. Well, this is the segment of the show where we actually do our challenge to each other. So once again, this is the film that I suggest a film that I've watched that he hasn't for 2003 and vice versa. So I will start. For me, it's a little tougher because Jason sees way more films. Yeah, he sees everything. Like, and I don't see as much as he does. I'm a little bit more selective in what I see. You know, a lot of the films, like his number one, is probably not anything that I would have gravitated towards unless somebody showed it to me. You know what I mean? I don't see everything, so I always feel bad because it's not that I'm trying to give him a bad movie. It's just that I have to go with what he hasn't seen, so that I've seen, which is rare. So in this case, I the last time I picked 2 comedies, so I didn't want to do all comedies again. So I figured we'd try our luck with more of an action film, I guess. And so we're actually going to do Hunted with Benicio del Toro. So
okay, all right,
yeah. So we'll see how you like that one.
Yeah, I thought you hadn't seen that one either because that was
I've seen that one.
You just not rated it. You just hadn't rated it.
Maybe I just didn't rate it. I did see the Hunted. Okay. I have seen that one. Yeah. So check that one out.
How is it?
It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not going to make my top 10 of that year, but it's not bad.
All right. Okay.
All right. And for me?
For you, I had a hard time choosing this time. You haven't seen a lot of really good movies from 2003. You need to see American Splendor. You need to see A Mighty Wind. You need to see Shattered Glass. But my choice, which I can't believe you still haven't seen, is Lost in Translation.
No, I have not seen that one. It is one that I've heard of. So,
well, that's a start.
I heard of the other two also, but I do know that one's obviously on the radar. It's one of those ones that a lot of people have seen and liked. So cool. I just never got around to it. It didn't look like my type of film, I guess. I just never gravitated towards it. So, but
I think you'll like it. It's a good. I think you'll really like it.
I'll check it out. Well, since you don't find it to me. I'll check it out since you chose that one for me. I will watch it. So the Hunted for you. I can't
wait to watch Hunted.
Yeah, Hunted for you and Lost in Translation for me. I'll we'll see. We'll see what happens. Cool. Well, obviously, stay tuned for our next show when we do our top 10 films. Well, it might not be our next show, but we do other shows in between. But whenever we do that show, our top 10 films of 2003, and we'll give a recap on Hunted as well as Lost in Translation, and then we'll also go into our top 10 films of 2003 as well. As always, if you like the channel, if you like this video, we ask that you like and please subscribe to the channel. Leave us a comment down below if you've seen these films, kind of your take on them. And as always, make sure you hit that bell notification so you can stay up to date on any of our new videos that we post. And we thank you all for watching, and we hope everybody has a great day.